Hi, you're with Jules Knight from Nasco based Speed Shop with FJ Holden JIVE talking. Today I wanted to talk to you about gauges on a FX or FJ. I particularly focus on an FJ, so let's sort of stick with that. What I've got is the Speedo Head from my car. So mine's a 56, it's ocean mist green. So you'll see that it's got the obvious colour. Now when I got it, it didn't have the stainless steel trim rings that are around the Speedo, the fuel gauge, and what's terribly called in the book idiot lights. Now, one of my buddies, the first thing that happened was as soon as he saw I didn't have those on the car, when I took it off the trailer, out came the trim rings, and they went straight on to make sure that I had them. So that was terrific. But look, on here, you'll see they've got a generator light, an oil light, and a temperature light. Generator, oil, and temperature. And so there's not a real lot of information that you're getting besides speed and everything else is okay with your engine, and also how much fuel you've got in your tank. This is standard for FJ. FXs had a little different colour. And one thing was FJ is black tumblers with white writing, and FX white tumblers with black writing. And believe it or not, in my 54 FJ Holden, when I brought it back out after I'd restored it, I had a brand new FX speed, so I just put that in there. And no one to this day knew the difference, but I enjoyed the fact I had a brand new Speedo. So that's standard equipment. Without the trim rings, this would be standard if it was a special sedan. Other than that, you would just have to pay the extra money at your Holden dealership and get the trim rings, and they literally slide and clip on. They've got some little lugs on them, and they just claw and grip into the paint. But once they're on, they're on. So that's the situation with the Speedo Head. It's undone from two bolts, one here and one there, and they sit either side of the steering column. Handy hint, if you need to take this off to get to lights or undo the Speedo cable or whatever, lay towel and also some cushioning material so that you don't scratch the face of the Speedo Head. But look, that's just the basic information. What you could also do, at the time, there was a thing called SSR gauges, and they would come with a holder, and it would be like so. So it was a matter of, that was, a gauge one side, and left-hand side, you would have the other. Now, in my case, I've got, from an SSR perspective, I've got amps, and I've got oil. So that's what I was originally going to go with. But then I sort of was going through the stock of the things that I've got, and I'm thinking, do I really want to do that? I like the idea of more information, and I particularly like the idea of finding out how hot things actually are. I had a Mustang that forever ran hot, and I had a 2 5/8 gauge of that, and it was telling me how hot it was, but unfortunately it was in Fahrenheit, and as a baby boomer you never quite knew exactly what the temperature was because I only really understood Celsius. So one of the good things for me was I was going to go with with my AC. I was going to have that for my oil pressure, so I've got a new old stock AC oil pressure oil pressure gauge, and I was also going to go with this temp, and in the theme of it being black, I was going to use this one. I think that's Smith, so it's made in England. And I'm just trying to get it so that there's no glare for you. I particularly like this because it has the Fahrenheit on the inside and the Celsius on the outside. So even I can understand that. So that's what I was thinking. But then I came across something else last week and I thought, this looks pretty flash. And me liking those types of things, and I know that Smith's is pretty reliable, I'm actually thinking about, as far as temp is concerned, going with this one. I particularly like the colour on it, and I think that, you know, from the water temperature perspective, this actually might be something good for me to use. So that's where I am at the moment. But worst case scenario, I've got an AC for oil, because you need to know what your oil pressure's like. Having lost one FJ motor on one Ford V8 motor, both with oil pressure failure. And the other thing is you certainly need to know temperature, because you don't want FJ Holdens to run hot. I've found with, you know, my mates have certainly delivered great motors to me over the years, and you know, if you look after a motor and you watch your speed, you know, you can be going from Brisbane to Adelaide, or Brisbane to the Snowy Mountains, or to, like, the maiden voyage for mine after it was restored was to Melbourne, and they like sitting on 55 mile an hour, you know, 90 kilometres an hour, and they'll sit there all day. You know, you put a new or cleaned out core into a radiator, and you don't have problems. If you sit there on the 60, you'll see the little idiot lights start glowing there as far as the temperature is concerned. So I always try just to be conservative and sit on 55. And with the grey motor, it would just be happy to sit there all day. Wouldn't give you an ounce of trouble, but as soon as it started being pushed, it most certainly didn't like it, and you'd have trouble. So some of the other things that I would keep in the car at the time when talking about going anywhere of any distance, I would keep a spare, and this is underneath the seat, or if you've got a ute, you can put it in the spare wheel bay. I would have a spare fan belt, a top radiator hose, a spare bottom radiator hose, and also I would have a spare axle, because you never knew what could happen with an axle. I've had 2 rear axles break on me over time, and one front stub axle just crack. It had a hairline crack in it, and it would have been in there for years, and you would never have known. And the other thing that I like to have in a car is, you know, I've got some tools from my dear old dad, and this is something that Champion put out. You know, it's for when you're gapping spark plugs and things like that, or you're trying to get things right. Now, I've already talked about the Nasco electric emergency kit, but you know, this has got all sorts of, you know, gapping tools in there and things that you need just to sort of, you know, get you back on the road again. So, you know, you can gap your spark plugs with this, and you can get things, you know, with the gauges to the right gap, and you're, you know, back in business again. But yeah, look, I definitely like to have a spare axle just wrapped up in a towel and put underneath the seat. You know, the worst thing that can happen is you never need it and you never have to use it. But I also will have, because you're thinking about having an axle, you're going to need a wheel puller or a hub puller, and this is to take the rear brake drums off, so that you can actually get, you know, so you screw this in, you wind the bolt in, and that pushes the hub off. There's a little keyway, and so that comes off, and then you can actually get to axle or brakes or whatever you've got to do. Now, the other thing that I found, or I should have had, was a harmonic balance puller, because I actually stripped a timing gear when I was young. I've mentioned it on one of the other episodes, and if I'd have had this little tool, it would have been good for me from the perspective of being able to wind the harmonic balancer off. So I've got a couple of these now, so I'll just leave one in the car. I'll get a spare timing gear and just, you know, put it underneath the seat. So I've sort of got that to take it off. And the other recommended tool they have, and that's, I should really say, to take off the harmonic balancer, And to put the harmonic balancer on, they recommend you, size it up, and then you put this this tool in front of the harmonic balancer, and that's what they want you to tap. And so that actually bashes the little frisbee. It's a little round metallic object that sits at the front of the motor, and it's to do with the harmonics. It's like a giant pulley really that the fan belt goes into, and that's how you reinstall it. Be careful how you do it though, because I can remember having to remove the fuel pump and have a lever pushing the lobes back. So as I was hitting it this way, I actually wasn't, pushing the shaft out the back of the motor. So all the things that you don't know when you're a young kid and you think you're doing the right thing, but you just have to be careful when you're working on cars, and which is why it's very important to have the FJ Holden workshop manual. And I talked about that in one of our last episodes. But look, that just gives you a little bit of an idea as far as the instrumentation that you had for an FJ, some of the gauges that were available at the day. But there's one thing I want to leave you with, which is just something special which you can use to replace the idiot lights, and which is this. It's got the oil and the temp in there, the same as the idiot lights, but it's also got the amps needle as well. So you can actually see how your charging system's going, and what's happening with your electrical system. And I'm more inclined to be using this one, and also offsetting the use of the temperature switch by having the oil temperature, the water temperature gauge instead. So that's what I'm actually looking at. Very simple. It's the 2 bolts at the back, and the original bulbs actually go inside there. The red is very similar to the red of the Speedo Head for the high beam. So they're just red cellophane. But in this case with these ones, they've actually got words stenciled on them. So, that's some of the gauges that were available today. We've shown you 6. There's other things that were, a little bit newer. This is, you can see as Smiths and AC and those sorts of gauges, went over in time, things were developed and modernised a little bit more, and things weren't so 1950s and so on. And, they're just trying to make it a little bit more fresh and relevant to the day. But so today we've talked about the gauges and some of the emergency tools that you can actually use and just keep underneath the seat to get you out of trouble if you need it. But look, I hope you've enjoyed our little chat. If you like what you saw, give us the thumbs up. You're very welcome to say hello and also subscribe to us. But other than that, take care, and I look forward to you tuning in another time and seeing what we've got to talk about with FJ Holden, Jive Talking. You have a nice day. Bye-bye.